Before Severance's many mysteries, and before we know anything about Mark, Helly, Lumen, or the Egans, the series grabs us with a simple existential question. Would you rather have a 16-hour day, skip the 9 to 5, and forget all the stress, monotony, and sometimes pain of going through your shift, and just completely remove yourself from your work? Or as the show says, would you become severed? For those of us whose workdays extend long after hours, or who are blinded by Excel spreadsheets years into a career we find little joy in, endlessly repeating a process in a never-ending loop, I think many would look at severance as a cure. That barring the moral consequences the show explores, like having a separate self, we could hypothetically make a living with none of the boredom or dread that comes with enduring the workday. What makes me think people would think like this? Well, as evidenced by the Innie's office jobs on the severed floor, or the Outties who resort to the procedure, many of us find ourselves doing something we genuinely dread, in a niche process that feels like it's stunted our growth. Today, these premonitions seem stronger than ever, affirmed by external factors like social media, remote work, or this corporate gaslighting, talks of work-life balance, wellness initiatives, mission statements, mental health awareness days, with little substantive backing. Ultimately, it's just so hard to put our hearts into something we see as so clearly insincere. Yet, when we find ourselves in one of these positions, escaping is often an even more calamitous decision than enduring. How are you supposed to transition to what you really want to do? How will you explain that gap on your resume? Or how will you be able to stay above water in transition with your peers and remain competitive in the workforce? Do you even know what that one thing you want to do is? Are you surer this time than you were the last? And what are your options if you do take that leap? Don't you need more money for school? Won't you be starting at the bottom all over again? Plus, there are economic factors like surging housing costs, high interest rates, threats of further inflation, trade wars, and global instability. It's no wonder finance is beginning to outpace technology and healthcare as the most desirable field for young individuals to enter the workforce in, as pragmatism overtakes idealism in difficult times. Severance the series is built for this pragmatist, the person calibrating for the concerns of the future, and in doing so ends up in an occupational existential crisis, staring down years in an empty environment just to maintain status quo. A world born from rational yet complicit surrender, of constant numbing pain and an accepted lack of control, where life might be better off if work, and maybe even purpose, could be offloaded to a separate consciousness.
Hello?
On the surface, the occupational existential crisis is captured by the Innies, the severed work selves created exclusively to go through the 9 to 5, lacking freedom to do anything besides work, completely at the whims of their Outties and their managers, where their day literally begins and ends on the severed floor, so their Outties will never have to see the inside of a cubicle ever again.
So I'll never leave here.
You'll leave at 5. But it won't feel like it, not to this version of you anyway.
Their whole lives then take place in this office environment, this prefabricated maze of muted greens and windowless halls, built to herd their thoughts rather than generate them. The Innie's aspirations are completely manufactured. Their work doesn't really make sense, and any thoughts about life outside or accentuated emotional attachments are policed and reprimanded. Really, it's the most boring and lifeless aspect of our jobs, amplified and repeated ad infinitum.
Do you have a moment?
Did you fill out an official request for supervisory interaction?
The severed floor, then, is a vacuum for finding purpose. A vacuum which Lumen tries to fill with these patronizing tokens of appreciation, like waffle parties, pencil pushers, and quick dance breaks.
Ooh, sweet melon bar.
But even more emphatically, they assure the Innies that their work is of providential importance, that it's mysterious yet important. In many ways, Lumen tries to convince them their work should be their religion, that past and present CEOs are gods, that textbook passages in corporate history are scripture, that statues of the Lumen family should serve as their inspiration. Managers even sing church hymns that exalt the company's holy work. It's like LinkedIn, but somehow even scarier. Really, the severed floor feels like that perfect representation of modern feudal office work. A place that tries to manufacture this absolute purpose in us that never quite sticks.
I got to 4%.
Yes. Feels good, right?
I guess.
Awesome. I'm glad you agree.
While Lumen signals the highest level of care and identity to the Innies, it's really just tools to make their workers believe they're serving some sort of calling. A calling so hollow that the workers who only know what Lumen's told them begin to long for purpose elsewhere, that know deep down there's some greater meaning than what's in front of them.
The boy, was that my son?
Do you have a family?
You'll never know.
Can you tell me his name?
And it's from these deeper longings that are now only inhibited by the paper-thin facade of smiles, benefits, and absolute purpose that surrounds them, that the Innies decide to act. They rebel against Lumen, a fight I think many of us will live vicariously through, one driven by an unrelenting quest for purpose.
No higher purpose may be found than this, nor any higher love.
And it's because of this arc of the series that I think many will see Severance as a story of affirmation, recognizing the insincerity and frustrations in our office jobs and finding the courage to stand up against them. Because that's exactly what the Innies do. But I think this reading of the series, well, I think it's pretty incomplete. Exclusively looking through the Innies' perspective misses the point I think the series is trying to make. The Innies are really only half of Severance. Once we zoom out beyond the severed floor, there's an even more challenging prison I think the series poses. One that doesn't just mimic the environment many of us feel trapped in, but demonstrates the circumstances behind why many of us find ourselves there in the first place. And this perspective offers a scarier, but I think also a more universal and constructive message that we can take from the series, explained by both the procedure itself and those who brought the Innies into existence in the first place, their Outties. At the very start of Severance, the Innies care deeply about their Outties, what they're like, if they have a family, if they have people who care about them, if they have a good life, and so on. Lumen even provides these sessions to the Innies where they give them meaningless facts about their Outties, like how fast they can parallel park, that they've donated blood, or that they cried during a movie and didn't attempt to hide it. Yes, extremely stupid things to us, except the Innies treat these facts like revelation, essential pieces of a puzzle that inform their why, believing their outside selves are happy, important, or special as to justify the work they do on the severed floor. They even refer to their Outties as themselves and we early on in the series, as if they're serving some symbiotic whole by doing what they're doing.
I just hope it turns out I have things I care about. Like, for real.
But Lumen doesn't actually see the procedure this way. They see Severance as a way for people to outsource their pain, to avoid things like dental visits, making thank you cards, or providing a better work-life balance. They even see it as a way to circumvent deep emotional pain or struggle. In fact, they view Severance as the end to human struggle, as we hear many of the employees say.
Met this animal to cure in his eternal war against pain.
So, see Mark?
Mark will benefit from the world you're siring. Kier will take away all his pain, just as Kier has taken away yours.
And the Outties seem to agree with this. They see it as a way to bypass their own critical pain in life. Mark, following his wife's death years past, is a husk of a human being. He uses severance to make it through his workday and escape the grief he feels. Really, it's a way for him to avoid feeling. Dylan in real life can't hold down a job. He's too inquisitive and outspoken to stay somewhere for too long. Severance is a way for him to properly focus so he can provide a stable income for his family without being in between jobs every so often. Burke goes through the procedure for spiritual forgiveness, a way to have a version of himself be clean of the sins he's committed and to potentially have that separate version receive salvation.
So an Innie can go to heaven.
Mostly Artie Burns.
And finally, Helena, the CEO's daughter. It's not entirely clear why she chose to become severed, but all signs point to her being miserable on the outside. In the few moments we've seen her, she appears in conflict with herself, looking for something or someone to believe in, stuck promoting and enacting familiar work she's been force-fed and seemingly has found no joy in. It's probably why she impersonates Helly on the severed floor, or begins following Mark around on the outside, not for Lumen's benefit, but to understand what it's like to be wanted and to say the things she's always wanted to say about her family and its religious devotion. But following the procedure, we see our characters' lives don't actually improve. They stagnate. Instead of providing a reprieve, they retreat to this constant state of accepted emptiness. Except in the show's instance, it's even worse. They haven't just accepted it, they've chosen it. They've put themselves into a mental prison where apathy is less painful than suffering for a better tomorrow. Like covering their ears from the ringing going on around them. They're complicit in their own defeat. And I think this chosen helplessness is the true lesson of severance, the one that leads us to those pointlessly unfulfilling careers, those incomplete relationships, or the isolation we see in the series. It's what can make us feel like we're beyond saving, stuck in inevitability.
I'm not gonna reintegrate. I lost my wife a couple years ago in a car accident. It's helping me.
I'm sorry, Mark.
No.
Yet, the side whose helplessness is forced on them, they find the exact parts of themselves their outie thinks is no longer there. Mark discovers love on the severed floor. Dylan finds confidence. He's focused and excels at his job. Bert leads his division and treats his subordinates with compassion, even strangers he's been instructed to hate. And Helly leads loved ones not towards what her family's created, but a rebellion away from it, most likely what her outie has believed all along. And to achieve this, it's not in some improved world, it's in the most controlling, desolate, and hopeless environment, all tackled with the same biology and tools their outie has. And I find this strangely comforting, in that by the end of season 2, it's no longer the Innies looking outward for purpose or for things to care about, but it's the Outties looking at their Innies to believe that version of themselves is still alive inside of them.
I've never been an impressive person, so when Gretch told me that you're like this self-assured badass, I don't know, it stung. I hope someday she sees in me what she sees in you. In the meantime, if I'm being really honest, I guess I like knowing you're there.
It's easy to look at Severance as a show about why our 9-to-5 careers feel inescapable and unfulfilling, which they absolutely may be. After all, the series does more than enough to empathize with the monotony and dread many of us face in seemingly meaningless work. But as the Innies show us, even in the direst of occupations, we can find purpose, relationships, or at the very least, begin hearing that ringing in our ears that forces us to do something about it. To keep reaching for meaning, even while being in an environment that's seemingly devoid of it. After all, the idea for the series came to the creator while he worked at a door factory. Instead, I think the lesson of Severance lies in the procedure itself. That whether it be a troubled career, broken relationship, or insurmountable struggle we face, we can't outsource that suffering or sweep it under a metaphorical rug. We can't choose helplessness to live a better life like Lumen believes we can. Because a severed world is one without happy endings, a constant middle without purpose or inspiration. It's endlessly doing work we say we despise, distracting ourselves from the issues right in front of our noses, or limping along in a state we know we must escape. Rather, we have to believe in a version of ourselves that can lead us to where we need to go, that can overcome that obstacle in front of us and resist folding into something we know deep down we aren't. And I understand this conclusion might seem a tad hokey for many of you, and to be honest, as I read this, it does to me too. Kind of like how Rickon's hilariously on-the-nose self-help book, The You Are, feels in this often existentially dreadful series. But thinking back, it was that cringy book that made the Innies believe in their own fight, in their own worth, and in their innate wants that Lumen tried to convince them didn't matter. It was that stupid book that was their inspiration to keep climbing. Ours might have to be more complex, and may be found in some deeper layer of Severance's story, or somewhere else in life. But as the series beautifully illustrates, the will or courage to find what you know you're missing, what you need to scale your metaphorical mountain, or go on that journey. Not only is it something you're capable of finding, it's something a different side of you has believed all along.